Romans 13:11. And that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. I just start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Chakadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Think About It. The title for this comes through inspiration of a video I just finished watching Elder Apostle Tahar doing called Cursed Shall Thou Be in the City and Cursed Shall Thou Be in the Field. And pretty much, you know, he was going into different scenarios, different things, and he was speaking on Jake in general that's into this LGBTQ, the homosexual, lesbian lifestyle. And as he was speaking about it, I was thinking about, I'm not sure if he mentioned it or if I was thinking about, you know, how these cops, they're killing Judite men and the different Latin tribes men and different Gadite men, you know. And pretty much, I was thinking about how, you know, like, ask yourself this question: how many, you know, since the cops are killing so-called black men, right, so-called Latino men, so-called Native American Indian men, how many so-called black and Latino and Native American Indian homosexuals or transgender or transvestite men are these cops killing? And the answer is zero, because those individuals are in the loop with the police, because this is a satanic kingdom under a satanic vibe. And that's the reason why they're not killing the LGBTQ. You know, they have more respect for homosexual Jake than they have for a regular Jake, you know, from the ghetto or barrio, wherever they may be. You know, so that lesson he was, Elder Pastor was doing, kind of put that thought in my mind, that how many times have you seen the police actually gunning down any member of the LGBTQ community, you know, out in the streets, you know, whether they be a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American Indian, any of the Israelites? And the answer is none, because they're all playing on the same team. And this was one of the first scriptures that came to mind in Romans 13. And the point is going to be a little further down, but you know, I started at the at the 11th verse. And the reason why I'm in my truck, I was just out there, and Satan, you know, had to send a whole slew of Edomite women, one woman and 3 children, 3 daughters, or whatever the fuck they are. And one of them was acting up and crying like a fucking demon. So I had to leave to get in my car. And as soon as I left, the bitch stopped crying. So you know what that was all about. Anyway, oh, and by the way, there's some individual that put a comment on my page, one of the videos I just recently did, talking about I finally found you, infiltrator. And another video, another comment he put was, why don't you unblock Nazarite Vow? Let me find out who you are. Well, you're finding out who I am now. This is who I am. Get a good look so you can know who I am. This is who I am, so you can find out who I am. You don't have to look any further. And by the way, I blocked your ass too. And I believe you're an agent, one of them feds, or one of them. You got a real foul spirit, you know. So that's why I blocked your ass. Talking about, let me find out who you are. Well, now you know who I am. Now what? Anyways, so the point of this video is, think about that. You know, think about how many times you see police officers killing any transgender, any lesbians, any homosexuals, among the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians. You know, and you're going to come up with absolutely zero, unless the individual that got shot might have been a bisexual or something like that, that was a so-called masculine or whatever the case is, in jail, whatever the case may be. So they're all in league. They're all on the same team. And this video might get taken out, but hey, we have to tell the truth regardless. So now the point is here in the 13th verse, Romans 13:13. Let us walk honestly as in the day. So it says, let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chamberings and wantonness, not in strife and envying. Now, when you look up the word rioting, Salaki, the word rioting, which we're going to look up, I'm not sure how much information is going to give on the offline Strong's Concordance, but when you go online in the blue letter, it gives you a lot more information for rioting. Let's see, rioting, komos, a carousal as of letting loose, reveling, rioting. And it goes a little deeper in, like a bunch of drunken buffoons, and pretty much like you go to the club, right? What do you have at the club? You have a bunch of, demonic possessed people in there dancing, acting a fool, drinking, and them demons are in there, fanning the flames of wickedness. So that's pretty much what rioting is going out partying at these different clubs, getting drunk. And when you go back into the ancient world, those feasts, so to speak, or those that so-called clubbing came with there's a term for it. It came with, like actual within the circuit of the drinking and dancing, the actual sex acts, orgies. That's the word, orgies. And those orgies consisted of men on men, women on women, men and women on beasts, men with women, but some of them women were married, so on and so forth. So it was a bunch of freakism going on, And like I said, when Elder Apostle Tahar was going into the video, those are some of the things that were going through my mind. So I said, you know what, let me build off of the lesson the Elder Apostle Tahar did, and just do that, to give some more insight into that, because that is the whole truth. As long as you on the wicked team, they're not going to persecute you. Remember, Yahweh Shai said, the world cannot hate you, but me it hateth, because I speak of it, that the deeds thereof are evil. And it also says, they are of the world, therefore speak they of the world, and the world heareth them. So that was rioting. Now the next one is chambering, which is, koite, a couch. By extension, cohabitation. By implication, the male sperm, bed chambering, conceived. So that goes into, these orgies that happen at these events. Now, these events are not the only ones that these events are not the only place where these things take place. These events of these orgies and stuff like that went into, the Bacchus and Dionysus and all that, and the banquetings of wine and the partying and the music and all that, the orgies. But it really is an extension of the religious rites or ceremonies of these different nations, because remember, they have a priesthood on the left-hand side, and a part of their priesthood is to commit sacrifices, and some of those sacrifices include children, but some of the cult ritual rites of those pagan religions also, there had to be orgies performed to please these gods, whether they were heterosexual orgies, homosexual orgies, or man or woman on beast type orgies, And I'm going to read this again, and then we're going to go to this other precept. It says, let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chamberings and wantonness, not in strife and envy, because the wantonness means undisciplined, because there was nothing there to set any boundaries, you know. And that's why in this society, when you sell out, you have to go beyond the boundaries of what the scriptures say, you know. And the more degenerate you are, the higher you make it in this society, in this club. And that's why you have individuals that are constantly, you know, in the limelight. If you see somebody that's constantly in the limelight, you best believe that they sold out and that they're actually, you know, constantly doing things to, you know, not be pushed out of the limelight or be looked at in a negative light in this world. You know, like your Jay-Z's and Beyonce's. When you hardly ever heard any of them be involved in any kind of, you know, getting arrested or, you know, or any so-called BS coming out on them. You know, everything is always about their music and about whatever endeavor they have going on, because they're deeply rooted into this satanic cult, you know, through the Boule, you know, which is the Jake's so-called Negroes, the Judites, you know, so-called West Indians and Haitians, Freemasonic society. So now this brings to mind, let me grab I got a couple of notes that I put down. Let's go from there to Deuteronomy 23 and 17. And this is something else. And like I said, you know, my resources are limited with this offline concordance, so we're going to try to hit it the best we can. Deuteronomy 23 and 17. It says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. So now let's go to this word whore and sodomite in Deuteronomy 23:17, so you can get a clarification of what that means, you know, because we already know a whore is a woman that lays down with many men, and a sodomite is a man that's a homosexual. But in these rites, what the scriptures is speaking about, it goes deeper than just that. It goes into these different cults and rituals, you know, that these pagan priests used to have. So the word for whore is quadashah. Now quadashah, you have the word kodash. Now the word kodash means holy. Quadashah with a ha at the end means holy for a female. But it says feminine of age 6945, a female devotee, that is prostitute, harlot, whore. So this is a woman that prostitutes herself in the midst of religious pagan ceremonies. That's pretty much what it is. And this is why when we read the Apocrypha, these are things that the Most High prohibits, you know. That's why I said thou shalt have no whore or sodomite, because you had these women that were whores. They would lay down with men, or they would lay down with women. Vice versa, you had men that would lay down with men or lay down with women that were doing it for these pagan religious practices, you know, which the Most High hates. You know, so it goes deeper than just being a woman sleeping with many men. And these individuals in these other camps, they'll pull that scripture out and they really don't know the in-depth of it, because, you know, a lot of them don't really go into the origins of the words, you know. So this is the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 6 and 1. It says, not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of the Most High. And this is what these devils, because of the ancient Greeks, which were nothing more than the ancient Romans, which are nothing more than modern day so-called Americans or Europeans, are all Edomites, and they all stem off of the left-hand side of the Most High. And their main goal that they have is to pull away the Israelites from their power, from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and to not take heed to the scriptures. It says, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, defender of the strangers, as it did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. Yeah, it was sore and grievous to the people because it brought a lot of devastation with it, because the Most High was angry about it, and he caused these nations to jack Jake up because of the things that Jake was doing. Now this is the point. For the temple was filled with riot. See, then we just read about the rioting in the book of Romans 11 chapter, not in rioting, and that's a procession of drunken fellows, you know, with women, or fellow on fellow and fellow on woman, or whatever case, of woman on woman, you know, having these parties, these drunken parties to the wee hour of the morning, and having these different orgies, whether heterosexual or homosexual. It says, who dallied with harlots. See, they dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. And this goes back to that pagan religion worship, their cults and rituals. And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. See, so that's what the Lord was warning Israel about. That's why the Apostle Paul said you got to repent of those things and stop with the rioting and the drunkenness and the chamberings and the wantonness. So then we're reading in Deuteronomy 23:17 that when it speaks about a whore, Kodashah, which is the feminine way of saying holy, that goes to the feminine cult prostitutes that would commit themselves to that, you know, among these different nations. And that goes into these Israelite women. And these Israelite women that you see at these bars and at these clubs twerking and dancing and, you know, and acting a freak, getting popped in the club or in the bathroom, you know, and then afterwards they might go home with a woman. You know, this happened back then, but it happened, you know, amongst all these people all at once inside of this of these things. A good movie to illustrate that would be Eyes Wide Shut, you know, Stanley Kubrick, you know, with Tom Cruise, when they show you that part where everybody had on robes, but then when you first walked into the party, there was, you know, people having sex on tables, and men with men, women with women, men and popping women, you know, with animals and beasts and all that. That's all a part of their rituals. And this is one of the reasons why they killed Stanley Kubrick, because he was revealing a lot of these parties that these people go to. When these celebrities go to these parties, they're invited to these parties, this is what's going on in these parties. You know, a bunch of lewdness, a bunch of rioting, you know, a bunch of chambering. And the Lord doesn't like that. And these transsexuals that do these things, they're in league with that whole spirit. That's why they're not getting shot down in the streets like Jake is. You know, the so-called normal heterosexual Jake or woman, mainly the males, you know, among Judah, among Ephraim, among Gad, and among the other tribes. So it says, so now for the word sodomite, when you go there to the Hebrew, it says Quadash. It says a quasi-sacred person that is technically a male devotee by prostitution to licentious idolatry. Sodomite, unclean. See, so it's a cult prostitute. Because remember, just like the Most High has a priesthood on the right-hand side, these nations have a priesthood on the left-hand side. You know, because everything is, there's a duality of everything. This is we open right to it. Ecclesiasticus 42:24. All things are double one against another, and he hath made nothing imperfect. So everything is perfect. The right hand side is perfect, the left hand side is perfect. But the Most High made us to be on the right hand side. That's why he gets angry with us when we go and we delve into the left-hand side. Just like Esau is not supposed to deal with the right-hand side, we're not supposed to deal with the left-hand side. And when you read up above this, it says, 22nd verse is, oh, how desirable are all his works, and that a man may see even to a spark. All these things live and remain forever for all uses, and they are all obedient. So when you see Esau being the devil, he's being obedient to the left-hand side of the Most High. So leave them alone. They're doing what they're supposed to do. When you see Esau doing what he does to Jake, and being the devil and being a homosexual and being a zoophile and a pedophile, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're being obedient to the left-hand side that their spirit is drawn to. So leave them alone. Let them do what they got to do, because eventually there will be a judgment, and the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai will bring a judgment. So now let's read this again, Deuteronomy 23:17. It says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Now you understand fully what that means. It's not just talking about a woman that's a whore and a man that is a sodomite. It goes further than that when you go deeper into the original language of it. Now, there was an instance where this was taking place, and the Most High was angry with Israel for this. And I believe he was a high priest at the time, or he was a priest, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was a priest. You know, he was of the order of Aaron, Eleazar. And when he rammed that man through his back, the Israelite man through his back, and that Midianite woman through her stomach, she was either Midianite or Moabite, through her stomach, he was actually having sex with that woman in these cult rituals to Baal. And this is why the Most High was pissed off. Not that he was having sex with another woman of another nation, but because of what they were doing. And when you read up above that in the first verse, it explains what was going on. This is Numbers 25:1. And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. So she was a Moabite in the land of Midian, I believe it was. And they called the people unto what? Unto the sacrifice of their gods. So this that they were doing, they were committing whoredoms against the Most High, because they were having sex. They were top men that were having sex with these women to appease or to sacrifice to the gods of these nations. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bow down to their gods. And this is what happened. And a part of the eating is what? Eating the sacrifices, but also partaking in the orgies, orgy festivals that they had to these different deities. Okay? It says, and Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. So how did Israel join himself unto Baal Peor? By partaking in the rituals of these different nations. And we're married to the Most High. So the Most High says that his sons and his daughters are not to be joined to any of these idols. The things that the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice the devil, is not to the Most High. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. So it said that these Israelites will join themselves to the gods. Let me see. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor. And now we understand, when we read the scripture in the New Testament, we understand what the scripture means, which the IUIC tries to use as saying that you can't have sex with a harlot, you know, with a woman that sells her body. This is not what this is talking about. The main thing that the Apostle Paul was getting at, these letters that the Apostle Paul wrote to these different Israelite groups out there, Israelite foreigners, was to keep themselves away from these idols and whatever they were worshiping, because that's what set them apart or pulled them away from the Most High. So this is 2 Corinthians chapter 6 and 16. And what agreement had the temple of the Most High with idols? For ye are the temple of the living power. As the Most High have said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their power, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, And be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. There was another one. Let me see if it's a First Corinthians 6. Just bear with me 1 second. 1 Corinthians 6. Let me see if that's the one. Yep. Verse 16. 1 Corinthians 6:16. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? Meaning joined to a harlot, what? Meaning partaking in these rituals of these nations that would join you to their idols in so-called spiritual matrimony, spiritual marriage. What joins us spiritually to the Most High in matrimony, holy matrimony? By keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of our abilities, doing the things that the Lord, requires of us, and that is what joins us to the Lord. So what joins Jake to these different nations and their idols is the things that they do with them. It says, what? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. So this is not speaking about an actual harlot. This is speaking about doing the rituals of these nations. Just like we read in Numbers 25 of how Israel was joining themselves to Baal Peor. See? But what happened is, these Israelite groups, especially these men, are so emotional, and they're so pussy whipped that they'll tell a man, you can't go deal with a harlot. You can't deal with a prostitute. And there's nothing wrong with that. Many of our forefathers dealt with prostitutes, and they have a problem with that because they've been westernized and they've been p-whipped. So it says, but he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. So see, it's talking about you join to idols or you join to the Lord. You can't serve the Lord and you can't serve idols at the same time. You can't drink of the Lord's cup and you can't drink of the cup of devils at the same time. For either you will love the one or hate the other. There has to be a choice that has to be made. So it says, flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. So now we understand what that's talking about. It's talking about the cult prostitutions that were going on among these nations, and it didn't matter which way they went. Whether it was man on man, women on women, man on women, man on beast, woman on, it was all a part of that ritual. And that's what it means in Numbers 25:3. And Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Yeah, because if the case was that we can't deal with the women of the other nations, then how come the Most High wasn't angry with Joseph when Joseph dealt with the Egyptian woman to bring forth Ephraim and Manasseh, who happened to be two of the tribes of the nation of Israel? If the Most High was so angry, why wasn't the Most High angry at Solomon for having sex with that Ammonite woman and bringing forth Rehoboam, whom was set up as king after Solomon? Why was the Most High angry with King Solomon? When he started bowing down to the idols of these nations. Not because he dealt with those women. You see? And why wasn't the Most High angry with Jacob for dealing with those women that were not Israelites? Because the Israelites hadn't been born yet. They were still in Israel and Jacob. How come the Most High didn't get angry with him for dealing with Rachel and Leah and their handmaids when none of them were Israelites? There's a lot of ignorance out there among these other camps, because they don't really study. They don't know the history. A lot of them, all they're doing is just regurgitating, as Elder Pastor says over and over again. They're just regurgitating what they learned from the old school, and they never really got into looking things up. So their whole thing is a curriculum. That's why when you go to them and you ask them certain questions, all you're going to get is a regurgitation or a curriculum that they were taught by the people over them, and they're always going to go to the same line of scriptures. You know, when you ask a brother from Great Millstone a question, a brother might start off with one precept, or he might start off with another precept. You know, we all speak the same thing, but brothers use different scriptures to bring out different points, because this is not scripted. This is not a curriculum. You see? So now, let's go from there to the book of Romans, the first chapter. We could end there. Romans chapter 1. And this is, you know, why these police are not killing, you know, homosexual black men, or homosexual Puerto Rican men, or homosexual North American Indian men. Because they're all in league. They're all serving the same God, which is the left-hand side. They're all in league. You know, they don't pose a threat because they are part of the establishment. This is the book of Romans chapter 1. And I start at 21. Because that when they knew the Most High, that's dealing with the Israelites that were in Rome that fell away from the Lord, they glorified him not as the Most High, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, because it starts in the mind. That's why one of the things that the Lord told Israel was what? Circumcise your heart. The mind has to be circumcised. With the mind man believeth, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. It starts in the mind. It says, and their foolish heart was darkened, meaning when they became vain in their imagination, their mind was darkened. Darkened to what? Darkened to the right path. To walk on the dark path of these nations. Whatever you see out here that goes against the scriptures is something that is dedicated to the gods or the idols of the other nations. It says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Yeah, because you have rituals, you have cults, you have a certain amount of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that comes from these cults that they profess, that they break down, but it's all wickedness, it's all foolishness. It says, and change the glory of the incorruptible power into an image made like to corruptible man. See? And what is that? These different idols that they were worshiping. And to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Yeah, because you have Molech, you have the calf of Egypt, you have Dagon, the fish god, you have different deities that were represented by different animalistic forms or men. So Jake changed the Heavenly Father for these vain things, for these vain idols. It says, wherefore the Most High also gave them up unto uncleanness. So the Most High gave them up to uncleanness. So when you see a sodomite out there walking around like that, the Most High gave them over to that uncleanness. And the only way that individual can come out of that is that the Lord take that spirit off of them and cause them to be in their right mind and turn their life around, not to do that anymore. Because the Apostle Paul encountered that. He dealt with that with some of these individuals of these different churches. And some of them stopped doing it and followed the Lord and were cleaned up. Because at the end of the day, these bodies are going to be destroyed and we're going to get new bodies. So all of these different individuals that are walking in this life, whether it be a woman that was she was laying down with all kind of men and the Lord took that demon off her and brought her into the truth, you know, and eventually he's going to change that body. Whether it was a man that was an adulterer, you know, and couldn't stop committing adultery until the Lord took that spirit off of him. And then when he brought him into the truth, cleaned him up, and eventually that body's going to be changed because that body's not going to inherit the kingdom of heaven, so on and so forth. It says, gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Yeah, because that's a dishonor to be a mole, you know, to be a butch. That's a dishonor. It says, who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie. And they did change the truth of the Most High into a lie by accepting these different worships of the nations. And worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever, so be true. For this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections. And those are vile affections. When you see these individuals, these men hugging up on each other, kissing on each other, or these women hugging up on each other, kissing on each other, licking each other up, that is vile affection. It's an affection, but it's a vile affection. It says, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, and that's against nature. And that's what the scriptures say. This is the same Bible that they make the president swear in every 4 years. This is the same Bible that they say in God we trust. This is the same Bible that they make you swear in the courts to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. So how come they're not reading these things? This is against nature. It says, and likewise also the men leaving the natural use of the woman. What's the natural use of a woman? A man has a penis, a woman has a vagina. The purpose for the penis and the vagina is for pleasure, but it's also to procreate, to bring forth children. As the Lord said, be fruitful and multiply. As at the beginning, the Most High created many, then he gave a commandment to have sex, to procreate, to bring forth more life. There is nothing pro-life with two women laying down or two men laying down. There's no life that's brought between that. Now, these devils are making it to where they're changing the plumbing of men so that men can get pregnant. This man gotta go. This devil got to go. He has to go. He is the plague, the pestilence, and the parasite of the earth. That's another name for a lesson. E is the plague, the pestilence, and the parasite of the earth. So if a brother needs a lesson, that's one. And likewise also the men leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lusts one toward another, men with men working that which is unseemly. And can you imagine what those bunkins do when they're alone? That's an inside joke. And receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat, which is these different diseases. It says, and even as they did not like to retain the Most High in their knowledge, the Most High gave them over to a reprobate mind. This is the Bible, man. This is the same scripture that these people in the church say, you know, well, if you're gay, the Most High made you perfect, just the way you are, whoever you want to love, you know, as long as it's love. No, the Lord said that's a reprobate mind that commits these acts. It says to do those things which are not convenient. So these things are not convenient. It says, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of the Most High, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful. So all these things fit you people that are into that lifestyle, who knowing the judgment of the Most High, you know there's a judgment coming, who knowing the judgment of the Most High, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. So there's nothing here that says that is a lifestyle that you should choose. There's nothing here that says that even if you're doing that, the Most High will accept you, don't worry. No, it said that these things lead to what? They're worthy of death. Not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Yeah, because not only are you involved in that lifestyle, you also try to provoke others to get into that lifestyle. And when they get into that lifestyle, the so-called come out the closet, you praise them. You laud them. Now you have a whole month of June where they call it so-called Pride Month. I don't think this video is going to last too long. So you brothers, I mean, if it does happen to actually go up, you know, you brothers might want to download it right away, because they might take this off. So that's pretty much the point, you know. So the point is, just think about it. How many times have you seen these police gun down anyone of the LGBT XYZ community, the alphabet people, as they're called in some circles? When's the last time you seen that happen? You didn't see it happen, and you're not going to see it happen because they're all playing on the same team. And the object is not to destroy those that are on the same team, but to try to gain the ones that are not playing ball to come to that side. And if they don't, destroy them, because that's a part of the New World Order. You know, the homosexual agenda, lesbian agenda, the LGBTQ, the transvestites, you know, transgender, transsexual, all of that. Pansexual, pedophile, because these Illuminatis, you know, these banking families, these higher ups are all into that, because that's what they thrive off of. You know, that is the energy that they thrive off of. And the more wicked it is, the more energy that they have to do it. You see? So that's why this world is under that vibration. That's why everything is upside down. That's why, you know, if you try to live a righteous life, there's always all type of persecutions and hindrances and all kind of stuff to stop us from achieving that, because this society is set up under wicked rule. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And wickedness is ruling this world. And that's why the Lord said that Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. So the promise is that this world is going to be taken out, and new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness shall be established, where righteousness will rule supreme in the land, and wickedness will be stomped out. And we will be set up as judges, so that when the nations go off, we'll be there to judge and to set things properly back in order. Because among Israel, all Israel shall be righteous in the kingdom of heaven. Even the ones on this side that were the most flaming, the sweetest ones, the most butchiest ones, the most foul, degenerate, grimy individuals among Israel on this side, in the kingdom, that are going to be righteous. And that's going to be a sight to behold, you know, to see all Israel being righteous again, and in their right minds. That's going to be something, man. That's something to look forward to. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.